potatoes, peanuts, avocados, cocoa. Yum, right? That's exactly what the Spanish conquistadors thought when they came to Latin America in 1492. They thought these products were so exotic and so different from what they were used to that they wanted to take them back to Europe with them. So they brought the crops back, but what they failed to bring back with them was the farming methods that the indigenous cultures used to cultivate these products. So they just kept using their European farming methods, and it worked fine for them because they were in Europe. And as you can see, this looks pretty familiar, as it does in the United States, but they used just kind of a monoculture system and just right out of the soil on the ground. And so they used these to cultivate the crops, and these crops became really popular, so they spread throughout the far reaches of the world. And eventually, this led to these products being available at any part of the world, basically. It is estimated that 60% of today's food that's available is from Latin America. However, this is starting to pose a problem for places other than Europe. Due to the variation in climate between Europe and a lot of other countries, their methods are proving to not be as efficient as they once thought they were. So this is a picture of a field being plowed, and obviously it's not being utilized and it's bare dirt, and the nutrients are being stripped every time they plow the fields. So it's not as efficient as it could be. And that leaves us with a lot of problems because, as we all know, the human population is increasing exponentially, and that leaves more hungry mouths to feed. That also leaves us a problem with our environmental crisis. With this farming system, a lot of the soil is losing its nutrients, and since we're using the base soil, that is losing a lot of efficiency, and it is degrading our ability to be sustainable and to be able to use these soils in the future. So researchers have been diligently looking for a solution to this problem, and they might have found a solution in a very unlikely place, or more likely, time. It seems that some of the solutions to these problems may have been around for 3,000 years, and they're looking at Latin America as an example. And it turns out that they're finding remains that are still intact, not completely, but they're still remnants, and some evidence that it's been around for thousands of years. So that tells us that it really works and that it's really sustainable. So today I'm going to be talking about 3 different types of methods that these indigenous Latin American farmers used in order to cultivate their crops, but also take care of their land and their people. Many of you have probably seen this picture before or something like it. It's called terracing, and it's actually been pretty heavily researched as a way to cultivate land that's not otherwise usable. So this is actually in like the mountainous region, so it's a steeper slope, and they're able to utilize it to grow their crops. A researcher named Altieri says that the advantages of the terraces is that they minimize risks in terms of frost and/or drought, reducing soil loss, broadening cropping options because of the microclimate and hydraulic advantages of terraces, thus improving productivity. So this image depicts what a illustrated version of a chipana looks like. So these structures were created by hand, as with all the other methods we'll be talking about today, and they were constructed in either low lake beds or in marshes. So the Aztecs would actually build these little platforms, as you can see here, above the water so that plants could be planted on top. And they're in standing water, so that creates a never-ending water supply so that you can cultivate these crops year-round. This is another picture this is an actual picture of what a chimpana looks like. So as you can see, it's in standing water, And the water actually helps to regulate the soil temperature, which aids with productivity. And now the last method that we'll be talking about today is probably the least researched, but the most widespread. So this method is known as waru-warus, and they're pretty similar to the chimpanas as seen with the Aztecs in Mexico, but there are slight differences. So this is an aerial photograph of just some waru-warus, and they're commonly found in the Andean region, and actually there's projected to be no less than 170,000 hectares of waru-warus spread about. So they're commonly found in Suriname, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. And on average, they're about 5 feet wide, but they can be up to 22 feet wide, 6.5 feet tall, and up to a mile long. And this is another illustration of how the waru-warus are so effective and why they work. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the rainy period. So that's when you have a lot of water coming down and watering those plants and soaking into the soil, and also creating the standing water on the sides of the raised beds. And then you have your drought period in the middle, so that the plants can still survive off of that standing water, but also due to the absorptive properties of the actual soil that the Latin Americans were utilizing. And another point to make on this image is that when the plant is in standing water, we know that the roots need oxygen. But what's amazing about these raised beds is that because it's built above the ground soil, some of the roots are able to get oxygen still and create a crop, whereas in swampy areas and areas covered with water, you usually could not do that. So what all three of these methods have in common is a soil called tierra preta, and it's also known as black earth. And as you can see in this picture, it lives up to its name. And the reason why it's so dark is it's so nutrient packed. And what's amazing about this soil is that it's human-made, and researchers have recognized this and accepted it, that it's not a naturally occurring soil, that these indigenous Latin Americans from thousands of years ago actually created this, and there are still remains that are intact today. So what's so cool about this soil is that it incorporates so many different things in order to make it really effective. It's made of biochar, which is basically charcoal. It's made of pottery shards, biomass, so any plant or animal material that's just basically providing nutrients to the soil. And it's also in places that are closer to a water source or a river or a swamp, have the kind of river muck mixed in with it, so it has like sandy particles. So all of this together creates a really effective soil. The pottery shards kind of act as rocks, which create a better soil structure and allows the water to percolate through. And then the biochar is stable for thousands of years. And this is what helps to put nutrients in the soil, but it also helps to retain the nutrients. And that's what makes this soil really unique and really, really special. And above, you can see this young man and the crop yields of the different soils. So this just goes to show how healthy and how sustainable that this product can be. So while all these methods might be really exciting and seem really new and so much opportunity, we need to remember that they've been around for thousands of years. And all we had to do was open our eyes and look around and look to our past, to answer some questions. So that may be a good thing to look at, and a good idea is to look at what we've learned from the past and utilize that for our future. It's ironic that the civilized people used to look down upon these civilizations and think they were so primitive and backwards. but actually, they might be the ones that are going to save us in the end. Thank you.